Hey guys, today in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I did to heal. The title of this video is Healing Through G&M, How I Healed. How did I heal of my chronic IBS? I had IBS. I suffered for 4 years with it. So what I did is I applied German New Medicine. And if you don't know what that is, you can watch my last video about it. The 5 laws you need to know to heal. And also to learn more, I recommend going to learninggnm.com to learn all that you can about German New Medicine. And so I had IBS, and that affects the large intestines. And according to G&M, on that same relay, that same large intestines, you could get colitis, diverticulitis, and excessive gas. So this video on how I healed, if you have IBS, colitis, diverticulitis, or gas, then this is specifically for you. And so the original conflict shock that I had, I thought about it, I thought about it, and I don't know what it was. And sometimes that happens. We'll get a conflict shock and we won't know what it is. And that's not the end of the world. That's okay. And so, but the theme conflict shock for IBS, colitis, diverticulitis, and gas is indigestible anger, perceived as an ugly situation. And so every language in the world has these sayings in it. Something happens to you and you say to yourself, you don't even have to say out loud, in your mind you're saying, I can't take this. I can't digest this. I can't accept this. I can't believe this. I can't stomach this. This makes me sick to my stomach. Have you ever felt that way when something happened or heard that or said it yourself? You probably have. So that's the theme for IBS. So what happens is there's a conflict shock. Something happens and it makes you feel angry, indigestible anger. And it's an ugly situation. It could be a breakup. It could be anything. However, we're all different. The same situation can happen to 2 people and they both perceive it and take it and deal with it and internalize it differently. So we're all different. So it depends how you interpret a conflict shock. But for people, for those of you that have IBS, something happened and you had that feeling. You perceived it as, I can't digest this. I can't take this. This makes me angry. And maybe you know what that is, maybe you don't. And so there's 2 phases to this. There's the conflict active phase and the conflict resolution phase. So if you have IBS, colitis, diverticulitis, or excessive gas, bloating, then in the conflict active phase, there's cell proliferation. And your body was programmed to do this. And so what happens is, say you have a big breakup and you're angry and you can't digest, you can't accept this breakup. So what your body does to help you absorb this, digest this, is that your large intestines will produce extra gut cells, extra bacteria, extra blood and mucus and juices that your intestines make in order to help you survive this traumatic event that made you feel angry. And so say a month or a couple months go by and you find somebody new to date, a new girlfriend, a new boyfriend. And so basically, in a sense, what you did, the way your psyche looks at this is, you resolved the conflict shock. You resolved the thing that made you angry, the indigestible anger. And so now, in the conflict resolution, you have cell removal. And so your body gets rid of all this mucus and all the juices and the gas and the blood and all these cells, gut cells. And that's when you get the diarrhea, the cramping, the gas, the mucus, the blood in your stools, the inflammation. Maybe if you're getting checked by a doctor, your numbers are higher. That's what happens. And you don't have to freak out. Your body is doing what it's meant to do. You need to celebrate. Even with those symptoms, if you have these gut issues, then when you have symptoms, that means you're in the healing phase. When you don't have symptoms, that means you are in the conflict active phase. But once you resolve it, which is a good thing, that's going to come the symptoms. But don't freak out. That's the biggest thing. Most people, they freak out. They get mad. They go crazy. They go to the doctor, emergency room. And sometimes you might have to do that. But if it's not super, super, super bad, you can let it pass by. And there's things you can do to kind of help with the symptoms. Definitely do not take probiotics or enzymes. You don't need any more gut bacteria down in your large intestines. That's just going to make the symptoms worse, more severe. So that's how that works. With you, they have IBS, colitis, diverticulitis, or excessive gas. Conflict shock happen, indigestible anger. You can't digest it. Then your body's building gut cells. It depends how severe the conflict was and how long you were in the conflict active phase. If you were in the conflict active phase for a week and then you resolve it and you were kind of angry, the symptoms are going to be mild. But if you were in the conflict active phase for months and months and it was a really bad thing that made you really angry, you're going to have really, really bad symptoms. So the symptoms are proportional to the intensity of the conflict active phase and how the duration of it, how long you were in it. And so what happens then is you resolve it, you get the symptoms. But a lot of people that don't know that what's going on, and your stupid doctor doesn't know, that's when you're in trouble. You get on medicine, X, Y, and Z. But this is what happened to me. And so as far as my original conflict shock, I don't know what it was. But I know, looking back, hindsight, I remember I was always angry. And there were things going on in my life that I felt that way. I felt, I can't digest this. I can't take this. I can't stomach this. I'm so angry. I remember feeling that way. And of course, I would resolve it and then the symptoms would come on. And so basically, there's 5 things that you need to know. There's 5 things that you need to know now since we went over this. And you need to know about the conflict shock. The conflict shock and conflict relapse. And so the conflict shock happens, your gut's going into overdrive, and then you get the resolution. There comes the symptoms. If you'll just chill and let the symptoms run its course, it'll last probably a few days to a week and you'll be good. But the problem is when you have a conflict relapse. Say you got this new girlfriend and everything's going good, but about a month later you break up. And then boom, the way you perceive it could be indigestible anger. Or somebody cheats you. Or somebody at school gives you detention. Or whatever it might be. Whatever makes you feel angry and feel like you can't take it, you can't digest it. That's when your psyche and brain perceive it as indigestible anger. Your psyche tells your brain indigestible anger. Your brain goes and turns on a special program in your large intestine. And that's for those of you who have IBS, colitis, diverticulitis, and gas. It doesn't really matter which one of those you have. What matters is you need to come to peace with the indigestible anger. So conflict shock, conflict relapse. And then the other thing is tracks. And tracks are things that remind your psyche of the original conflict. And you could do this with food, you can do this with events, you can do this with smells. So say you're good, you resolved the conflict, you went in the healing phase, you had the symptoms, and you're good. And then say, but every time you're on Facebook and you see a picture of your ex, that's a track. It reminds you of her, which reminds you of the pain and the anger, the original conflict. Or say whatever it might be. It could be almost anything. It could be anything that your psyche perceives as a threat. That's a tract. And also, foods can be registered as tracts too. For example, say you just resolved a conflict and you go and celebrate with your friends. You go out to eat, you have a hamburger, you have a milkshake. And because you resolved the original conflict, your body is going to be dumping those juices and blood and mucus and extra cells. But what happens is you have a huge flare after you celebrated and you're wondering what's going on. And then what happens is you talk to one of these holistic people, or you go on Google or read a book. And what happens is the information you're getting is you have inflammation of your intestine because of gluten or dairy. And so what happens is your psyche blames those foods for those symptoms. And so your psyche registers those foods as a tract. And so anytime that you eat dairy or gluten-containing foods, you get the symptoms all over again. Even if you're not in an original conflict, even if you're good, you get those symptoms, and they're just temporary. Say you eat the bread and the dairy, you got to go to the bathroom, a few hours later, you're good. But as long as you keep fearing these foods, and these foods register as a tract, or whatever the tract might be, it could be anything. Like, for example, my ex, a lot of ladies wear the same perfume that my ex wore. So every time I go around, I get a smell of that, it kind of takes me back to that time. Memories come up, emotions come up, and then symptoms come up. And so that's what's really going on. And the last thing is fearing symptoms. You got to quit fearing symptoms. You need to know that the symptoms are going to come, but once you get over them, you can fully heal. And you don't have to worry. That was one of the big things that I went through, is getting to the point that I'm not going to fear symptoms anymore. I'm going to go on a long car ride. I'm going to go out to eat with my friends. I'm going to go out for the day and not worry about where the bathrooms are. I'm not going to fear the food. I'm not going to fear the symptoms. I'm not going to. And so that, in a nutshell, is really what you need to know. That's how I healed. That the anger is what caused my IBS. When I resolved the conflict. And then, of course, if you watch my video, I had relapses. I was blaming food. I had chronic anger. I was afraid of the symptoms. And that's why I had chronic IBS, is because I was just caught in the conflict active phase, conflict resolution phase. Hanging healing. You go right back to the conflict active, conflict resolution, conflict relapses all the time, and then the tracts. Things that I was remembered of the original conflict. Maybe I was at the park, seen a bathroom, seen someone eating food, that triggered a tract. Or foods, definitely gluten and dairy, and then fearing the symptoms. So that's what happened to me. That's how I healed. If you have any of these issues, then this is how you can heal too. So honestly, it's important that you get this. Watch all these videos. Go on Learning G&M. Check it out. Any comments, any questions, let me know. I'm here for you guys 100%. Let's heal together. Bye-bye.